Thank you for tuning in to the Good Grief, Good God Show, hosted by Grammy nominee and Emmy award-winning hit songwriter Brad Warren of the Warren Brothers. Join us monthly on the first and third Tuesday on your favorite audio platform or in video on YouTube as Brad hosts a wide variety of special guests to find the good in grief through raw, honest conversation about surviving things that suck. I'm producer Matt Pivoto. Coming up in 1 minute, Brad welcomes three-time Songwriter of the Year and Grammy Award winner Tracy Beathard. Casey's a hugely successful songwriter. His catalog of songs include Kenny Chesney's No Shoes, No Shirt, No Problems, and The Boys of Fall, Tracy Byrd's 10 Rounds of Jose Cuervo, and Eric Church's Hell of a View, plus dozens of other hit songs recorded by the biggest names in country music. Casey's family is filled from top to bottom with elite athletes and musicians. He is the son of Pro Football Hall of Fame general manager Bobby Beathard and the father of 5 children, including current Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback CJ, country music recording artist Tucker, and his late son Clayton, who was fatally stabbed in December 2019. Over the next 2 hours, Casey will share his testimony of finding the good in grief through his family, friends, and most importantly, his faith, including his journey of forgiveness to the man who murdered his son. Make no doubt about it that Casey, including his wife Susan, has been a shining light and role model to people like Brad and Michelle who share the loss of a child. For more information about Casey, Brad, the show, check the description or visit goodgriefgoodgodshow.com, where you'll find the most up-to-date show information, including links to the back catalog of episodes. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the show, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment or a big old 5-star review. Episode 4 is brought to you in loving memory of Sage Michael Warren and Clayton King Beathard.
Casey Beathard, are you in the Hall of Fame yet?
No.
You're not?
No.
Really?
No.
God, I was kind of hoping to say Hall of Fame or Casey.
Yeah.
You're really not in the Hall of Fame yet? How'd that happen?
No, I
Well, he's coming, obviously, but yeah.
No, I don't know. I do know this. I remember back when Tom Shapiro got in, and he was so worried about it. I mean, this was years ago, and he was call me up, and then I go right with me, go, Casey, how does this guy get in and that guy get in? He goes, will you, he started asking me, do you know anybody? So it turned into a big lobbying campaign.
It's a bit of that, sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
and you're obviously not lobbying.
That year he started lobbying for it, and he said, because I got you, and I would have this person and that person, if you would call them up and say, what about, and so he had, and that's, I think that's, I don't know. That's probably how it goes in all these things.
I'm going to lobby for you because that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, sure, it's coming anyway.
No,
but
I honestly, and I'm not trying to be, this is not false humility. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what the qualifications are. I don't know. I mean, I haven't done anything.
I don't really know. And I really don't care. I don't think you probably do either, but you're far beyond whatever qualifications are there for being in the Hall of Fame. You have a buttload of really big songs and great ones, but yeah, I don't really care for me, but I kind of look at it and go, well, that's like, it kind of pisses me off that you're not in the Hall of Fame a little bit. You know what I mean? Just out of,
well, know this, it honestly doesn't piss me off. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't go, huh? What? When I look or read.
Yeah.
But I really don't care. And I mean, it's just, how there's so much. So, especially in the last, in the last few years, just the perspective change is so different. It's totally different. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't, I don't think about it,
Yeah. It seems like it would have happened already. It seems like it would have happened already like 5 years ago for you, long time ago before, but you're like well beyond. I shouldn't say some people I hate to ever, I'm so happy for anyone ever getting there, but I'm really actually kind of startled that you're not in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I thought I was kind of close, but if you're not in there, I'm not really close.
No, you might be. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you might be close and might be, I don't know, man. And that's cool. When you look at it, it's kind of confusing. You go, I don't even know what the qualifications are anymore.
or the criteria. Because
that's what I mean, the criteria.
The number of hits or the girth of those hits.
Or what is it? The length of your career?
But you kind of have all of those. You have the long career with huge hits and a bunch of them. That's kind of it's interesting though.
Yeah, it is. And I, like I said, I think like I said, I think in the last couple of years, the shift in the give a damn has just totally changed, Yeah,
it's true because I definitely, I care. And we'll get into this a little later, but I can hear in a few of the songs, I don't follow anyone's career very closely, but I do know a couple songs that you've written since Clay has been not with us. And I can hear, it's funny, subtleties. They're really just subtleties in the, like where you are now. And it's not something direct at it, but I hear it and I know where he is because it's subtle. The things that wind up in the songs that I've written since Sage died it's subtle, but I know why I said that or why I had that line in there. And it's not necessarily anyone else would get it, but I feel like I may be wrong, but
totally.
I feel like it's what we do, like competitive. Like my first thought of you is always football. For whatever reason. I mean, you're not a Hall of Fame songwriter, but I thought you were. But no, I always think about like football and competition. It's a strange thing because it's not supposed to be competitive, but quietly
but it is.
Yeah, sure it is. That's how you grew up, right?
Well, yeah, and that's what I think makes us successful in this town and this business is the competitiveness.
Yeah, my wife and I had dinner with the neighbor we grew up next door. I haven't seen him in 10 years, and we grew up next door to him. Like 50 years, our parents lived next door to each other, so we grew up. And he said, "Oh yeah, you are competitive." And I'm like, "Really?" And he goes, "Oh my God, everything, race to the end of the street. Yeah. You and your brother would fist fight over basketball, after school, fist fight." And we meant it. And I guess. And he said, "Oh my God, yeah, you guys were competitive to a fault." And I didn't really think of it until I thought of it. And then I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, we were."
Yeah, you can't be that close and not fist fight.
Thank God for it, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
Toughen both of us up.
Totally. That's like my kids are just
How old are your girls now? I know
22 and 12.
22 and 12. Holy crap, Charlie's 22?
Yeah.
I just remember her being in middle school, but I guess my middle schooler that was there is 22 as well. Yeah. Wow. But you just kept having them too. 12-year-old, you still got high school to go through again.
Yeah.
You're a glutton for punishment. You're a glutton. So whenever I love quotes. I want to have a quote for everybody that I have in here to do this. So I found a quote that I thought was you. I try to find a quote that is somebody, like what their essence might be. But the quote I looked up or found for you was, and I don't know who said it, so it's just going to have to hang out there. But there's nothing less important than the score at halftime. You and I and the journey that we're on, I feel like this is halftime. You know what I mean? We really don't know what's going to happen in the fourth quarter. I mean, we kind of know, but we don't know.
Yeah, that's wow. That's a great quote. It was it really does remind me. I was with some guys this morning and talking about biblical stuff. And we are literally talking about Paul and his road to Damascus and talking about a guy that you talk about doing 180 degrees change, turning everything on a dime, like had a run-in encounter with Jesus and everything changed in his life. So yeah, that's how you talk about what it looks like and where you think it's going and what everybody thought it was going. But no, that's not how it's going.
That was his halftime.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I think we have probably a bunch of halftimes because I definitely had a halftime 17 years ago getting sober, but losing a kid was halftime.
Oh yeah.
Because definitely, I mean, it's the worst thing you can ever have, but it's, I wouldn't have predicted I hate using the word blessings. I wouldn't have predicted the good that it was capable of coming out there. I would love to hear a little bit about your, I know, so your dad is Bobby Beathard, the general manager, NFL general manager for the Dolphins and the Redskins. And
yeah, no.
Are you allowed to say Redskins
Chargers,
anymore?
Yeah, whoa, you can't. Yeah.
We're going to say it.
And it's on mic. You're canceled.
It's on mic. Canceled.
You are canceled.
Thank God I'm not important enough to get canceled because it already would have happened.
Oh, you are important enough to get canceled. Matter of fact, I might do it to help my songs. If I can get another song on the chart, I think he needs to be canceled.
But so I mean, you guys played football, and your brothers. You have two brothers, right?
Yeah, two older brothers.
Yeah, they both were football guys.
Yep.
Yeah, and the whole thing. I mean, so I just like. Well, I kind of want to hear how you came about it, but also like how the hell did you become a songwriter?
Yeah,
it seems like a very odd path.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, only God. I mean, you literally look back in my life. I was raised with morals and standards, and knowing that God is out there and saying prayers now and then and things like that. But I never went to church as a kid. My dad says he was whatever, and he was what his grandparents were, and they went to church on Sundays and stuff. So I knew of God and all that stuff. So, but I didn't really, all that time growing up, it wasn't until later on in my life I look back and go, man, God had his hand in my life the whole time. And I think he put a gift in me way back. My mother was, and her side of the family were pretty musical, and it was always singing and playing around Christmas and getting around the pianos and doing like that. And I was drawn to it. And I found out also early in a kind of a little bit of a jacked up home, with my mother being an alcoholic and my dad always gone, but that my best way of getting out my feelings, I just wrote them down. I always did. So ever since I could write, I'd tell my mom I couldn't get it out. So I'd wait and I'd write down a note and just hand my mom a note and go, this is what I feel. This is what I think.
And how old were you when you did that?
Probably 6 or 8 when I started doing that. And it was always, and I'd get in trouble or whatever, and I couldn't really talk to her. So I'd go in and wait, and I'd just write her a note, or I'd write my brothers a note and then it began, then it's turned into that. And I remember writing poems and then stories. I remember in 4th grade, 3rd or 4th grade, and there was always maybe once a month there on Fridays, you can go up in front of the class and read a story, a made up story. And I did it one time. I made up a story that made the kids all laugh. And it was like, wow, it's just, man, I got a payoff for that. Man, it worked. I mean, my story was good,
That's with some guitar on this. This is going to be great.
Yeah. But even at that time, I think I was 9 when my mom said, she put me in guitar lessons and she put me in vocal lessons just because she knew I loved it. And she and I sang all the time together. And then she harmonized, and I'd sing whether it was Michael Jackson or John Prine or any of that. I loved it all.
And neither of your brothers?
No, nobody else did. See, it's just so, I mean, how does that happen? I mean, it's just wild. So I was always that way. And then I carried it all through school, and then college. I got a guitar, and I had a roommate that played, and he just showed me some stuff, and I started, and then my mom, and then I was just learning cover songs, making up just stupid songs when you could on like a keyboard with beats and things like that. I was a track guy before they were track guys.
You were the original track guy, cassette tape. And
that's all. That was my musical ability. It was just like turn the Casio thing onto the click and just, whatever. But, And then my mom passed away when I was in college, and that's when I wrote my first song. And my last year of college, I was, among the cover songs, I'd play that song and got some feedback and good, confirmation from it.
And this is where?
This was in North Carolina when I was in college at a little school there called Elon.
Oh, yeah.
Elon College.
Oh, you played football there, right?
Yeah. And, so everybody would come over, hey, play your song and do, And then I got out of college and went back home, and the things that I knew how to do were paint and landscape. But I figured I had a degree. I was going to go get a business job. I just figured I had to. But at night, I'd always go home and I'd just run to my guitar, all the time. And then I found there's some bars that I could go play in.
What city was that when you went back home?
That was in Alexandria, Virginia. Home was Virginia. Yeah. My dad was out in the West Coast with the Chargers.
And they were divorced by that time.
Yeah.
So did you even, I didn't know. I wrote songs at 12 years old. I started playing guitar at 11, started writing songs at 12 because I wanted to be in a band, and I thought you had to write your own songs. Yeah. I have no idea that what we do is a job.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So did you come here to be an artist?
Yeah, I came here to be an artist. Yeah. So, no, I mean, I guess I had heard of a little bit of the songwriters, but I was just more of a fan of the singers, especially in country music, but all kinds of music. But when it became country, I was only playing country bars. Yeah. And some guy in the back of a bar one night, when I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do in life, was like, man, you're pretty good. I like that song. Did you write that? Yeah, you're pretty good, man. He goes, you ought to go for it. And I was like, what does that mean? How do you do that?
Where do I sign up to go for it?
Put me on that.
Because I'm in, but I don't know how to do that.
And he goes, no, man, you need to go down to Nashville. And I was like, really? Okay. And man, it's just crazy. Yeah. I looked at my rent when my lease was up on my rent, this house I was renting out in Centerville, Virginia. And I just made up my mind. I was like, when that's up, I'm going to Nashville. And so I had some girlfriend up there, all that stuff. And I was, she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, I'm out. You want to go? No. She goes, no. Hurry up and come back. And I went.
Figured to be back the next week.
Yeah. And it was great, man. It was just that independence of just going for it, man, trying all over and just getting a couple jobs. And
what hits me is amazing about that piece of the story is that you're a great singer and really a great guitar player. You have your own style. I mean, I know, but you on a gut string with the low D. I mean, you're great at it. It's like I always say, people say, "Oh, you're really good on guitar." I'm like, I'm good at what I do. Yeah. You know what I mean? I can't do everything, but But anyway, you definitely have. I could see someone in a bar thinking that. But what you're great at is lyric, is this thing. And the guy who encouraged you to come to Nashville had no idea probably or you probably didn't have any idea that you were going to be like a great lyricist.
No.
That's just a lot of people come here and they can play and sing, but being able to write an idea that anyone gives a damn about is really hard.
Yeah. I did a lot of that before I came here. I came here with there's some stuff that I left out, like going to different studios and playing, learn somebody, even up there in Virginia, people doing favors and let me in their studio and recording my songs with me and my guitar, and that's it, and I had 8 or probably 12 songs when I came here, and I didn't know what co-writing was, but I love the challenge of trying to figure out a twist or taking, I don't know. I just thought that was my favorite thing, of coming across an idea and trying to do something different with it. So
that's what makes country music great. It's no shoes, no shirt, no problem. It's just our common friend, actually the guy that introduced us 20 years ago or whatever it was. Kenneth, more than that, probably Kenneth Wright is, buddy, nobody turned a phrase like Casey Beathard. And it's true. You tie a phrase in knots as good as anybody there. It's cool that you kind of came here probably not realizing that was your gift.
Yeah. And that was what I was going to end up doing. No, not at all.
Yeah. We have no idea what we're really.
Yeah. I wanted to be a star, you know?
Yeah. My dad said, when we were moving here, he said, hey, don't stop being funny. You're not really as good as you think you are. And I was like, and the truth is that years later, you know, I'm the 53-year-old guy in the writing room with 25-year-olds. I said, if I cease to be a fun day, I'm probably out on my ear. Right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's keeping, my dad's advice still kind of rings through that. Yeah. So is there any resistance with your brothers? I was just curious if you got like, what are you playing guitar for? You're ridiculous. Or
no.
Anyone telling you my dad is gone. My mom is still here and she's 78 and we've been writing hit songs occasionally for 20 years. And I still don't think she thinks this is a job. You know what I mean? She's, she didn't get any of that.
No. I mean, my brothers and my sister, they were actually proud. They were big fans. Like, man, play that song, you know? Probably still ask me to play those first songs. And I'm like, those songs are horrible.
The family always remembers that. Yeah. Remember that song you wrote in 82?
Yeah, I'm like, no, why isn't somebody singing that? Because it sucks. You know, it's not good, you know. But anyway, no, they were proud. My dad was kind of, being a dad, he always is. He's like, gosh, he'd always check in and go, dude, you know, not that. That's not what he'd say. But he'd say, buddy, why don't you come, you know, I could put you to work. And one season when I was here, I did. I went to work for him. I spent like 3 or 4 months. He was trying to save me from this. He really was. He was like, man, so what are you doing there? And what? Well, man, after about 8 months here, I was finding my groove and everything and just figuring out what I did and where to go and how to do things and open mics and all these things. And he was like, man, why don't you, we're short a scout. Why don't you come do this? And he thought that would, and I did it. I spent about 4 months scouting, going around the world, around the country, just looking at players and writing reports, turning them back in. And he thought that's what I would get. But I finally, right when the draft was over, he was talking about, okay, well, we'll get started next year on the next. I was like, no, I'm out. He's like, really?
It's funny. My middle son, he went to college for that. That's what he's doing at Western Kentucky University. Like I don't want to do that. It's his dream. We all have our own, he's like, that's what I want to do. No interest in music whatsoever at all. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's crazy.
It's great. It's just, and I think there's something about, so you had a little bit of the resistance I was talking about, but like for Brett and I, you can't do this. I'm like, thanks. I'm so grateful for those people that said, that's not a job. You can't do that. What are you doing? Yeah. Because I don't know if we love music as much as we love to prove people wrong. I mean, that was just, please tell us that we can't do, we were just ornery.
Somebody tell
if I'm so grateful. I really am. And if my parents had been the drive you to the gig people, we'd never be here. They were like, no, I'm not buying you equipment. I'm not driving you to the gig. This isn't a real job. You need to cut your hair while you live in my house. The whole 9 yards. And I mean, I'm 53, still living the rebellion. I can't seem to get a haircut or get a real job. But
it's back. It's back. That hairdo.
If you hang along enough, it'll come back for you. I got some bell bottoms hanging up in the closet. They're gonna come back.
That's right.
Yeah, I've literally had like the same. I don't even think it qualifies as a look. I would say it's a lack. I've had the same lack of style consistently for. You have to say you've had a visor.
Yeah.
And that's just
figure.
You still look like a coach, even though you're not in football. Well, you were a coach. I know you coached your boys.
No, it's funny. I get confused that way all the time.
Yeah, I got to watch your boys play football early. CJ, I never forget just you making that kid run back and forth to get to play every down. I'm like, man, run another kid in there to give that kid to play. But
I'll never forget that. It was out of JP2, and And I remember that the guy with the ponytail called that penalty or he did something there was a guy that some kid tripped. I think tripped with his foot. And Steve, remember the guy with the ponytail, you and Brett and Kenneth and me, we were all yelling at the guy with the ponytail. That was your first time ever going to a game. And at the same time, you were like, what's he making him run so much for? Then you were out there, it was awesome.
We were all in, man. It was great. And by the way, every kid, it's really funny, man. I mean, every kid has a potential. That kid is your son is playing in the NFL. The kid you made. So I'm like,
crazy.
Far be it for me to tell you, making him run back and forth to the sidelines probably put him in the NFL because his work ethic was up there. Let me tell you, you had him worked over. Yeah. And I just thought, man, there's bound to be an easier way to get that kid some plays in there. He's dead, he's back and forth. Yeah. And then the other thing I remember is, so Sage was, I guess, 1 or 2 grades behind Clay, but when he was an 8th grader or freshman, Tucker was a senior at BGA. And so either he was a freshman and not on the team yet, or he was an 8th grader and we were just going to the Father Ryan games, but we went and saw Father Ryan versus BGA. Yeah. And y'all didn't have much of a team, but Tucker was unbelievable. Yeah. And he was playing quarterback and they were beating the crap out of him. And he was making the throws and making the runs and challenging the game just by himself. And then he goes and plays defensive back. I went, oh no, there's no way that kid's, and then they're going to punt and he goes back to return the punt. I'm like, oh my God, this felt the same way I did about CJ running back and forth across the field. I'm like, that's funny. Wow, they're going to kill that poor kid. Yeah. And I mean, he's not very big, but I mean, he was taking hits and delivering hits and knocking people's head off. That was the most impressive thing I'd seen, because even more than anything I ever saw CJ do, because I'm like, that kid is getting pounded and still making plays, making this a game. And he literally never came off the field. I think he snapped the ball sometime.
I know it.
It was awesome. Crazy. Yeah.
That was so awesome. Those years. I think that's how it was with all of them. I mean, CJ came off the field. Clay came off the field. Some, but they were willing to, and, they played a lot of downs at that school. Sage didn't do it till he was a senior, but as a senior, he played both ways and returned punts and kicks. And I thought, man, you always want him to be on the field the whole time. And about a third quarter, I'd be like, God, give that kid a rest. Give him a break. But it was nice to not have him. Yeah. So tell me Clay's story. I mean, that's the thing we don't want to have in common that we do, but here we are. Clay, he was the third child, like me. So we had a lot in common of always taking it as a challenge. Our older brothers, the 2 older brothers, are always real close. So, I was closer to my little sister, my sister, and like he was. So he hung around Charlie. I hung around my sister, Jamie. We were that way. We figured it was kind of like not a rivalry, but you wanted to be your brothers, but you were always I'm going to outdo them. I'm going to do everything better and bigger, and whatever they do, I can do more. And he always, you kind of feel like the outsider, but he was, he was just a very independent, really a lot like me, very responsible and accountable guy that never wanted anything from anybody. He always wanted to do it himself. He got tools at a young age. He wanted to be an Army guy at a young age. He wanted to do everything. He wanted to make his own money. He didn't want anything. While the other ones in the family are going, hey, needing gas or whatever, he would, hey, Dad, I'm sorry. Look, I'm going to come home and do this. Or he would just go without until you noticed and go, hey, do you need? He goes, oh, no, Dad, don't do that. I'll figure out a way to get. No, man, that's what I'm here for. Let me, that type of stuff. And he was, so he was that guy, and he was a military junkie. He wanted to be a Navy SEAL. even though the funny thing is he started getting recruited by the Naval Academy coming out of school, and we're like, that's awesome. And he was like, I mean, I want to do that, but not now. I don't want to go to college for it. I want to go to a real college and have fun. I don't want to do that yet. I'm like, dude, he goes, I'll do it after college. I'll go, then I'll join.
I see it. I watched him play. I get it. Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to go through all those rules right now. Like I want to have a college, So, yeah, so that was, he was, I mean, we're kind of biased. Just a goofy, awkward in social skills. I always told him that for me, he was like gifted in the stature department and looks department. I mean, everybody always talked about that, about his looks,
All-American surf boy.
Yeah, he had it all going for him and all that stuff, but his game was it was horrible. He was the worst. It was so funny. He couldn't talk to a girl to save his life, man.
That makes it look more charming when he has no game.
Oh,
that's
he
awesome.
had zero game. The worst. I mean, he would, and then anytime he had a girlfriend, it was always that one, just that dumb thing that he couldn't get past, that he had to break up. He had this girl, he went off to a junior college in Iowa, Western Iowa, and he had been talking to this girl somehow, some way, but he finally met up with her. She lived in Des Moines, Iowa, and they became boyfriend and girlfriend, and they were hanging out, and it was getting, I'd never met the girl, but he'd spent 6 months with her, and it was really cool. And he was spending every weekend, every Friday night, he'd drive to like Ames, Iowa, near Iowa State, where her dad was a high school coach. So it was like a cool fit. She was a daughter of a high school football coach. He liked football people. They all got along. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was like, hey, whatever happened? What do you guys, how's that going? He said, oh, no, that ain't talking. We're done. That's not, I'm like, oh, okay. And then you finally got down to the bottom of it. He went out to go eat with her, and they were driving back to wherever the house was, and he couldn't get over it. There was a piece of something stuck in her tooth. And he just, the whole time he was talking, he didn't know how to tell her, for one, that it was stuck there. And second of all, he just couldn't get past that picture. And the next day, he said, he broke, or next week or whatever, he broke up.
Yeah, she wasn't the one, because it's the one, you can just excuse
he had little quirks like that. He could not.
Brett broke up with a girl one time because she didn't cry during Dances with Wolves. And he was like, that girl did not cry. How could you watch that and not cry?
Oh, I get it.
Hey, you're not a Christian. Get out. He couldn't get over it. He broke up with her because she didn't cry in Dances with Wolves. Yeah, I thought that. So that's probably just as bad as.
But I'll tell you what, one thing about him was, I'm not trying to make him out to be more than anything. I got to be careful of that. But he's an underdog fan. He knows, he's just a real guy. He was so real that he could not tolerate fakeness. He just couldn't take it. He couldn't stand egos. He couldn't stand any of that. Even in our family, and it was awkward getting around cousins and people like that. He would defend. He just couldn't do it. Like we were going, hey, well, they're all coming over for dinner. He's like, Dad, why? Why are they? Because it's my brother, and it's because it's the whoever. And he's like, they lie, Dad, they lie. Well, you cannot trust them. And I'm like, I know, but it's Christmas. Come on, man. And he's like, oh, yeah, dude, just be it. And he's like, all right, what things like that. He was a right thing guy. And he didn't, if you go back to maybe, I don't, but a lot of people would say, like, stuff he posted on whenever he'd post, it was, he just didn't believe in that unless it was some kind of something that would make a difference in the world or the kingdom or encourage somebody. That type of stuff is all he ever posted. And And then when you go through that was the one great thing about going through the trial that I was just so adamantly, I mean, you know, it was crazy. I like it. I don't liken it to this all of it. I just did the one thing it reminds me of. I remember before we were going to go to that trial, it was like, man, why do we got to do this? And everybody's like, because look. And I remember when Jesus was in the garden and sweating and crying and asking the Father, you know, to take the cup from him. But if it's your will, then we'll go through it, you know? And then I was like, man, because some things you don't want to do, but you have to do. We just have to do. We're going to go do it. And the Lord, I saw the good in it all, because it was really crazy, because they witness testimony after testimony on trying to defame his character. And the character witness was just overwhelming. I was just like,
yeah, I know enough to know that wasn't going to happen. Like,
yeah, I was just, but I mean, I knew that, but it was so reaffirming just to remember who he was, and just the stuff, you know, like his senior year, he's the quarterback. I mean, there were these girls, they were wanting to go to prom or all these things with him. And I didn't even know this till someone brought a book over of pictures and stuff from like one of these and thoughts of Clay that sits on a table you could read about after the fact. And what's this? And he goes, and Susan's like, that's the girl that he took to prom. And like, who is it? And he goes, he took her because he knew no one had asked her, and she'd never been to one. And I was like, dang, I didn't know that. And he goes, yeah, because she of course she's not going to tell you that. But all these things come out and you hear the testimony on from there on so it was just overwhelmingly made me proud. And while I couldn't watch most of the video evidence, I got to see a lot of it, to see the sequential things, how things went down. And I got to see who the guy he was that night, and how innocent and how much fun they were having, and how he was a sober kid. He was sober.
You don't really know exactly what happened. So you see it, and you know that he's a great kid, but did he have a bad night? What happened?
Yeah, I was battling and all that, you know, dang, Clay, if you'd only. And that the things that I had heard and whatever, but when you get to sit there and go through it and talk with the lawyers and go through all the evidence and talk to the detectives, you know, in recesses, and go, man, wait a minute. So everything about him was scrutinized, you know, from what he had on to what he had in him. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing in him. And and only things on him were, you know, it was awesome to see just the big screen and these people watching, and to see that, you know, this was on his neck and it's a cross. This was on his wrist and it says Jesus Christ. And this was on, and just these things on him, and you're going, wow, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's him. And then they talk about then I see what he did. It was when it was clear that his friend, he was a bystander watching a mob happen over and walk over to this mob scene. And he watched his friend, AJ, get stabbed in the head. And that only then he stepped in. And I was like, I go, man, I would have done it. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have done it, but you couldn't stop him from doing that every single time.
I hope I would have done it.
Yes.
And I would hope that he did it every time. Yeah.
No, it says no, I don't know what it says, no greater love than that of a man that'll die for his friend. And it was just like, when I saw the way it really went down, literally I was like this and not watching and plugging my ears, there was no sound, but I was trying to watch it, look up every now and then when I could see certain scenes were over. But when I had to watch the sequence of events and when did he get involved and why? And I was like, it crushed me with pride. I mean, I don't think I'd ever felt a release, and I could finally go, dadgum, I'm so proud of my son, you know? And I know and we talked about it so much. I was like, dang, there's no other way, you know, in this situation, he would have wanted to go out. That was the SEAL guy he wanted to be, you know, and he was that guy. And, but that was him, and it was typical of him. But, and, you know, maybe I realize now that was probably a battle of things that he should have or could have controlled before then, and if only.
And then you go into, when you go down to that hole, that's a hard hole. Well, that's a loser, because that hole doesn't matter. And
you know, and it doesn't. And that was just me, because my kids, and when I was talking about it, I was like, guys, and they're like, Dad, you keep going there. I mean, it doesn't matter what happened. I don't care if he was hammered or whatever. It just doesn't matter. He did not. You know, no one deserves that in this, you know, it just, you know.
So I'll never forget, a couple things I'll never forget. December 21st, it's my birthday. We're driving to December 21st, 2019, right? Yeah. And we're driving to Memphis. Me, Michelle, my wife, my 3 boys are driving to Memphis to go see a Grizzlies game for my birthday and just hang out. I get a phone call from our mutual friend, Kenneth Wright. Clay Beathard got stabbed last night and he died. And I'll just never forget that moment. We're driving and we all started crying in the car. And I reached back and grabbed Sage's hand. He was sitting catty corner from me, and he said, Dad, I've been in that situation. So I've been in and by the way, we didn't know the situation.
Yeah. I didn't either.
Sage had struggles, by the way. It's funny, these kids, that there's a group of men that you're on a text chain with us, that guys that talk, probably 15 dads. There's a common thread amongst a lot of these kids that have left, but Sage was the protector, like to a fault. Like we were the summer before he passed, we were in LA and we were walking down the Santa Monica Pier, and some guy came up, because I look how I look, whatever, and offered to sell us weed. And we're like, no, we're good. And then he came in again and kind of, are you sure? You know, and we're like, no, we're good. And then he kind of came around a third time, and Sage just, that's my mother. You do not talk to that's it. You don't talk to my mother. Back it off. You need to, what did he say? You need to bounce, like, and like, I took him aside after that and I said, buddy, I know you think you're protecting your mom, but you're really just putting her in danger. Just keep walking, man. You'll get to the end of that guy's little territory, and but that protector in him he was a protector to a fault. He couldn't help himself, and Clay couldn't help himself. And I mean, God, we don't want the result, but the pride in that. And so you knew who he was. And the truth is, it doesn't matter, because you knew who he was, but it is, man, it does. I have only, and Sage's death was a completely different thing in way, but I have only been encouraged by the things that I've heard since his death, from coaches, from his friends, from people that say they're sober and alive because of him today. So when you hear that stuff, just as a dad, just as a comfort, like we know he's good. We know they're good where they are, but to hear that, it means a lot. It's got to mean a lot.
Well, yeah. And not only that, and this might encourage you and help you and Michelle, is that, I mean, I get the benefit of hearing stuff and looking back of, okay, how did that go down literally and whatever. And I look at the sequence of events and the time and the whatever, and you can't even make it up. You're like, how there were so many outs. There were so many,
he almost didn't go out that night, right?
Yeah.
Or something?
First of all, he just was this close to not going, and he goes. He had to go. And his Uber was there, 15 seconds later. The guy does this and the guy does that and whatever. And if this or if that, if there, it was just, it's just crazy. I think in the character of both the kids that left that night, it's the same kind of guy. There's like Paul and Clay are the same kind of guy, just great kids, great warrior kids. And, and as much as we've talked about Sage, there's nothing what we could do about it. I don't know how the Lord at the time, for some reason, is building up his kingdom for something, but it was just an odd way of all these people going. A lot of people went at the same time. I'd heard so many stories, the same kind of character guys. You know, I have no doubt that even if you ever did, I mean, you know, your son, my sons, they've all been into the same things. They all do the same. They're all the same kind of kids. They go to the same conference of high school football, the same kids they hang around, the same stuff they do. And why? I mean, just these kind of good kids, they get taken out. I mean, it's no coincidence. It's not. It just is, and we can't do anything about it. And I like to look at it more like, it was their time. It was absolutely their time.
Yeah,
it just was.
Yeah, we're all going to have a time, and it puts me. We've discussed this before, but this event in my life puts me in a position where I have a perspective that I would love to have lived more of my life with.
Yeah.
Without losing my son over.
Yeah.
Like, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
Don't sweat the small stuff. We're all going to die. Know where you're going when you die.
Yeah.
Now, be confident with that. I have introduced, I'm raised Southern Baptist, super charismatic type family. And there was a lot, by the way, no childhood is perfect. There's a lot of messed up things, and I had great parents and a great family. Just strangeness in the religion of my childhood. I have been able to, and by the way, I through getting sober 17 years ago, I found God, and we have been taking a different path that we're meeting up. The closer we get to the answer, I'm meeting up with all the people that I'm like, oh, okay, we're going the same place. We're just doing it a different way. But this event of losing my son has introduced me to a whole new God. Yeah. It's the same God. I'm like, oh, you mean you're actually rooting for me?
Yeah.
Not against me? Yeah. Oh, you're actually on my side, and you just want the best for me. This isn't a punishment to have to behave and act this way. Yeah. And you haven't promised me. So Toby Mack, I talked to after Sage died on the phone. I know we had friends in common. I don't really know him, but we talked on the phone, and he gave me a couple tidbits that I never forgot. And one of them was don't get mad at God about things he never promised. Like, he didn't promise us we weren't going to have trials. In fact, he kind of promised us that we were going to.
Yes.
But he will walk with you through those things. And the idea that, like, there's an element a little bit now to me, like, bring it on. I can take it. What do you got? I'm good. Because God's going to walk with me through this, and it can't be more painful than what I'm doing. And I do everything a little better than I did 2 years ago.
Yes.
Everything. Whether it's be a father and a husband and a friend, or whether it's exercise and whatever I'm doing is going to be a little bit better. By the way, that's not saying much for some things, you know what I mean? But everything I do is going to be done a little righter than it was before, just because lack of fear, lack of care. Man, you talk about freedom, not caring what people think.
Yes.
I thought I didn't care what people think.
Yeah.
I did. I don't now.
Yeah.
But I really did. And that's
stop trying to please the world. It goes from, like, I always say this, believing in God to believing him. And so everything he says and what is in the word, even Jesus said that. He was like, and when he gets tempted out there in the middle of nowhere, and he said, even him, he's like, look, this is the freedom we have to just go. He says, well, it is written, my Father says this. So that's why I can't. That's why I'm not. I don't have to be afraid. You know, anything that we could walk free in, they're going, why don't you? Well, why is this? Why is that? Because it is written. My Father says, and I believe him. And I know these things to be true. I know a lot of these things. And you could say, I wish I could have had this earlier or whatever, or me too. But it couldn't have been any other way. I mean, you know, he's taken, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, and I think it's the same for you, taking idols that were coming between me and God out of my life. And probably my biggest one were my kids, you know, man, you got to get, you know, like I've told you all this, but, you know, it wasn't long prior to that where I was just battling with a lot of things. And I was in the middle of worrying about what was going on with CJ, wherever he was, and texting him this, you know what, if he did this and if he walked and if he prayed, I don't even know if he'd been whatever. And, you know, and she's like, Casey, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to wear yourself out. She goes, you're a good dad, man. But you need to let him go. And I was like, yeah, okay. You mean let go and let God, the bumper sticker? She's like,
that's a big AA thing too.
I go, yeah. How do you do that? How do you do that? And I mean, like God just going, I'll show you.
And now you know, right?
Yeah. And he allowed it to happen because it turned into me. I came to a place that's going, you know, I remember early, it was probably 3 in the morning. I was looking out the window a day afterward, just not sleeping and looking out the window and going, reading scripture that I'd been text, you know, he is close to those who mourn and whatever, these things, you know, and I'm reading, I'm going, okay. And he is find comfort in this. And I was like, okay. And I was talking out loud, just God, I need it. I need this. Prove this. I need it. Where is it? I don't feel it. And what are you talking about? You know, but I was seeking him, you know, I was like, I want to believe this. So please show me what you're talking about. And then you just fast forward. And now, I mean, here we are over 2 years later. And I'm just like, how did I get here? Because he gave me what he promised. And it was only because you seeking him. And it's just, now I could literally, I mean, I could have a few months ago, a year ago, just go, man, of all my 5 kids, there's one that I don't even have to worry about. He's safe. And I was always worried about, where are they? What are they doing? Are they going to be okay? I don't fear death anymore. There's nothing I fear. It's of no consequence to those found in the Lord. It just doesn't mean anything, you know, and it's just so, and all our family knows that, our kids know that, and we talk about it all the time and what the truth is. And so that brings a peace that, and a joy in all things. Now I understand what it's like to suffer, rejoice in my suffering, because now it just brings me closer to God every time. You're going, oh, you promised these things. In all things, I praise you. You are for now to get through. You're not just some thing that I got the cover charge stamp for when it comes. When I die, I want to make sure I go to heaven. So I'll throw the water on me, do all the stuff, and so I can go.
Yeah.
No, I need them for right now.
Yeah.
You know?
First of all, the ripple effect, you have no idea what it does because well, let me refer to what you just said, because I agree. I used to think that we were doing all this to get to heaven. Well, right. You can't earn that. It's grace. And like my mother, who knows the Bible more than anyone else, I'm like, Mom, you can't earn it. It's a gift. You can't earn a gift. A gift's given to you. I feel like the gospel is for us here. This is how you do this. I'll tell you, that'll take care of itself. Don't worry about that.
It is.
It's for here. This is the best way to live here. But the ripple effect of how you are, because you are, in my world and eyes, you're one of the least full of shit people I've ever met, and you're a spiritual rock, right? You're unabashedly reliant on. You told me days after, whatever, in the room right back here, you did what you said, and I wasn't there at the moment, but when you said, I'm not afraid of death. I have one kid that I'm not worried about finally. And I thought, man, that's true. And that was really what I was always worried about. And it isn't always, there's pain involved. I know you have bad days. I have bad days. Yeah. There's pain involved, but I am not afraid of death. Just not afraid of death. Yeah. Like I was about to sell my motorcycle before Sage died. It's just Nashville's getting crazy with traffic and whatever. And I'm not out there trying to get hit or anything, but I started riding a motorcycle again, and this freedom, just like a loose garment, just riding with a loose garment. And that, that ripple effect of you having that faith, and you said earlier, you said it's not believing in God and start believing God. Like, I like the difference between faith and trust. Like faith is, I believe that bridge will hold between the two cliffs, and trust is just getting across and walking it, you know? And there is a trust that I have in the process. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm taking it all the way to the end, because I know that what I've felt in this thing, and I just think the human spirit is far more than this one life this body can 100%. Can handle. It's just, there's so much more. And I am just so not the guy to, first of all, I'm the guy to be afraid of death. Yeah. And I'm the guy to be a Christian because I'm hedging my bets, but not because it's, you know, it's a great way to live. But I just want to make sure I don't wind up in the other place. And, which is such, you're just still missing the point. I'll blame it on myself. Not how I was raised or the church I was in or who I was. I blame it on myself. I missed the point of all of that. I was just trying to not get in trouble. Instead of the unbelievable benefits of actual true trust. The trust means the pressure is no longer on me.
Yes.
I'm finally, hey man, whatever, bring it on.
I remember when I got to Nashville and later on, I met my wife. We were over there living in an old, I knew I needed something more, even though I didn't have anything yet, but I needed something more. That I started this family, and I needed to be responsible and accountable. And I knew, God, what am I doing? What am I doing? And my old running to hell together buddy was coming through town and asked to stay at my house. Imagine that. Where was he going? My old roommate in college, and the guy that the talk around town was that he met Jesus on a prison floor, and he's a Jesus freak. And I was like, Mike is? You're kidding? Wow, that's crazy. And then I get a call from him. He's going to start to plant a church in East Tennessee and needs to come from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he's driving, and he and his wife and kids want to stay at the house on the way. I go, hey, what are you doing? He goes, yeah, Jesus said, I'm going to open a church. And I was like, he's crazy. This is crazy. This guy, Mike, we were as wild as you could possibly be together, you know? And he stayed at the house, and all he said to me was man, he said, and he just got out of evangelism school in Tulsa or something. Went to college for 2 years. Anyways, he all he said to me, he goes, man, so you trying church? I go, yeah, I've been thinking about that. So I've been going around these churches. There's a Church of Christ over here I went to the other day, and he's, you know, and he's asked me about it. I don't know, man. It was just kind of, it was just like being in detention, you know. He goes, well, yeah, and
clocking in.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know. I didn't get it. It was hard. I didn't understand it all, and it was just, you know, and I felt it like that, and so he just laughed, and he goes, man, you should just try to get to know Jesus. Go to a church where somebody will tell you about Jesus. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what that looks like. He goes, you know, maybe it doesn't, you know. And I go, here's the thing, Mike. I like my beer and I like my Copenhagen. And he's like, and he laughed again, and he goes, man, yeah, bring it. He goes, bring it. Bring it to the relationship. I go, what are you talking about? And I go up there, and he goes, man, you can't clean yourself up you're not going to clean yourself up good enough for him. Nobody. And I was like, wow. And I did it. And that's when that was all. And that's all he ever said. He was Mike. He was funny and all that stuff, but he just wasn't, he was the same fun, crazy guy, but in a different way, you know?
And a positive. It's funny you said that, because I told my mom because she's a great lady, but she's just very, I mean, she's very far into her version of things. Like my dogma is dead on, you know, kind of, we were raised kind of in that way. And I said, Mom, I've learned one thing through this for dead sure. God wants a relationship with me now, not when I quit cussing.
Yes.
He is not waiting for me to quit cussing. I've been waiting for me. You know, you've been waiting for that. He's not waiting for that. He can handle me in the F word. You know what I mean?
And you're not hiding it from him.
No, not hiding it from him anyway.
I know.
But I just
so
stopped trying to hide it from him.
Go in there and hang out with them.
We, man, my favorite AA, I'm not even supposed to call it AA when you're in any sort of press, but 12-step meetings you're in, and some guy from New York said his first prayer ever was like to God. And he just finally got on his knees and he didn't know how to pray. He'd never been to church. He's a New York guy. And he looked up and he said, fuck it, you win. And I thought, what a great prayer.
Wow.
That's probably Paul, you know,
Wow.
that's his thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
But that is something. It's like, the way I was raised, your beer and your Copenhagen weren't going to be allowed in there.
Well, so, I mean, right after that, so I really began searching for a place, and I ended up finding this church. This guy in jeans was talking about life and the Bible, and he was reading it, and it made sense. And I just came into a repentance place, and I was like, I'm in. And I was born again, and when I was 25 and started going to this church over there in Murfreesboro area, and bringing the family there and raising it, and then we moved out over here, and I was doing my best to live, to try to do, be a Christian and whatever that looks like to me. But there were a lot of things I just wasn't surrendering. I hadn't come to a full surrender, and I wasn't going to give him. No, I got these, and that was my kids. I got my kids, and so what? And I got to make some money, so I'm going to write what I want to write, and I'm going to say what I want. I'm going to do what I want to, and I wasn't and I had, being a competitive guy, and I was, I hadn't treated everybody as good as you should. I mean, coming up, I had some jealousy in me, especially in this town, looking around, and resentment over some things, and and you're trying. I was trying in everything I could do, and it was just a hard last 20 years of trying to battle between God and walking in the world. And it was just hard. And until this happened, I could not come to this surrender.
I was just going to say the word surrender, because it's like a surrender to both.
I mean, I was like, all right, you win, and then it was like, I trust you. I believe you, and I trust you. And I just started sinking and going, and so I needed answers so bad that I was reading everything. Well, man, I believe this. I believe you. Wait, you said what? Oh, you mean this? You mean, and all these things, these things have missed me before. I've been listening and going to church, but and that's cool. Did you get with that in church? That's cool, man. I feel good about that. But I mean, it's just a relationship, like an encounter that all of a sudden, like, what I know what he wants for me now. And so people are like, oh, so you can get born again now, and you could go do what you want. I said, yeah, that you could do what you want. I go, but I'm going to tell you, the trick is that
you're not going to want to do the same thing.
Your wants become his wants, and then and it's just like, because
the desires of your heart, man, I was going to get what I wanted.
Yes.
The truth is the desires of my heart changed. And when I saw you in court, there's a news clip someone sent to me. I saw you in court forgiving the kid that stabbed your son. I was like, wow. If we do a lot of Christian talk, I was raised in it, but that is a rubber meets the road moment where it's like, man, you talked to that kid like he was one of yours. And it blew me away. It literally kind of leveled me for the night. And I had to kind of just, like, I was with some people and I had to regroup, but that I had to be incredibly hard.
Very first time I went and saw that kid, it was in the preliminary hearing, and I was sitting in court, and I looked over, and it was really weird, man. It was just started. I didn't hate him. I don't know. It wasn't me. I just couldn't hate him. It was a thing. I just didn't even know. I was like, and he started going, and this guy's trying to defend him. This other lawyer that started out.
You hated the attorney though, didn't you?
Yeah, huh?
You hated the attorney though.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the attorney.
Wasn't a fan of the attorney.
And then he was trying to defend him. He was talking about his, whatever, and his dad, and this, or that nobody was around, and all this. I go, man, this guy never had a dad, let alone a father. He didn't know nobody loved him like he should have been loved. And I just it broke my heart. And I was like, where's this coming from? And it was just that encounter that it was, I think I'd finally, I don't know. I just think finally everything in me was just I kind of let go. It stopped. It stopped. It was just like, quit trying so hard.
I mean, that is the point of all of the Christianity and all of the church I got beat to death with, and the place I'm trying to find my way back to now. Well, I'm not trying to find I found my way back to.
Yeah.
But making sense of who's right and who's wrong, it doesn't really matter. The essence of all of it is you being able to have empathy for that kid.
Yeah.
Talk about a miracle. That's a miracle. I mean, and you don't even know where it came from.
Because you got to believe that believe again in the Saul to Paul story, on his road to Damascus. And he's persecuting and killing Christians. And all of a sudden, Jesus loved him enough to meet him in the middle of the desert and goes, man, I love you so much. I want you. I'm pouring out my grace on you. Believe in me and, start doing your work for me. It's not me to, it'll just eat me up. If I spend all this time, why bother with it? It's just going to eat me up. And the Father's going, man, let me have that. Don't worry about it. Hey, I know you didn't get all the hits you wanted today in the game. Let me, just tell me about it, that you, whatever, and then move on. I will handle that with your coach or whatever, and just go on, and you trust him. And I didn't know, I was always trying to figure that out. What does he mean? But now I just go take him at his word and go, okay. And it just sets you free. I don't have to hate him because the Lord's got it he's going to do what he wants. And he is always, this would be wasted if I, just going, man. And I'll be honest with you. When they asked, they said, if any of you have a statement, you could say something tomorrow in the sentencing thing. And I was like, and I stayed up at night trying to think about it, what I would say and if I would. And it wasn't until early in the morning that I figured, no, I just knew God gave me what to say. But I didn't, that part wasn't written down. And but I looked over him and first time I ever saw him in all these days and all these trial days, I looked at him and he looked like he was just a kid. And I spoke and it just broke me down. And he started the first time I ever seen him cry in all these days. And he shook his head. He nodded at me like, I know. And, I was blown away, and all I could think of is the one more. That's what he's doing. That's why I said, he'll leave the 99 to get the one more. And how much would it mean if he turns from his ways and gets saved? And Tatum literally did say that. She goes, how cool would it be if Clay and Michael could be friends in heaven? And anyway, in the next 2 days, this is what's crazy, is that the next 2 days we were driving to North Carolina to the Outer Banks with the family. And for some reason I woke up at 5 a.m. we were drive close enough so we could check into our place the next day. It's a long drive. We're in some hotel in the middle of nowhere. And I woke up at 5 and I looked at my phone and there's a text and it said, hey, Casey, you don't know me, but, I don't know if you've seen, there's a Michael Mosley's little sister. Her name is Mariah. And she put a Facebook post up and it just said that she was so tired and so much pain and so tired and didn't know what else to do. If anybody knew who Casey was, could you please give my number? Because I want to be that one more. And I was just like, it's 5 a.m. and I just started crying. I started sobbing. And I went out and went down to the lobby and I was like, oh my gosh. God, he's just so trustworthy and so faithful. If you just do what my spirit moves you to do and watch what I do with it. And so since then, not only have we been talking, but I text her all the time.
With his sister.
And just with his sister, to just tell her how loved she is and just tell her who God is and trying to help her through this walk, where she is. She's a 22-year-old girl also with her brother in prison forever. And her other brother was killed in the drug deal. And,
wow.
And so
wow.
I'm no better than her. She's battling like all our kids are, and that losing two of her brothers in that way. And so, and he's just going, if that's all this whole thing was about, then his work was done.
And there's so many all about those things. First of all, that crushes me, that story. But like, I know in my logical recovery mind that I have, like resentment is like drinking poison, waiting for the other person to die. I know that. That's what you're doing. You're just drinking a glass of poison, waiting for them to die.
That's so good.
It doesn't work. It's not, but it's a lot harder said than done. I mean, it's easier said than done. But when I saw you saying that, I was like, because by the way, my son wasn't, actually he was poisoned by someone that put fentanyl in something but it wasn't the automatic thing, but there's a few places along the way for me to get resentments. I say that I've forgiven everyone along the way. There's a few instances where it's easy for me to go, it's not really, there's something there.
Yeah.
And when I saw you do that, I think what totaled me was, damn, man, if Casey can do that, you're good to go. You can forgive anyone and move on from whatever resentment that you're holding on to. And I'm pretty good about saying I forgive somebody. I'll orate it. I'm Baptist enough to know that, we feel like we say something, it's just done. Whether we did it or not. But I saying it and then truthfully holding a little anger. I'm pretty good at, like, I don't do sadness as often, but man, I can get really some righteous indignation going and just be angry. Yeah. And when I saw you do that, man, it tore me down into a place that I'm like, I need to re-examine. And it was like, I knew we were going to have this talk this week. So this is like a week ago. I was in Florida. And I was like, man, there's a reason that I saw that, because it was random. Someone just didn't know that you were coming to do this. Hadn't talked about any of that. And it's just one of those moments where I'm like, if anyone, and I don't want you to think that I'm building you up to something that you don't want to be. I'm not saying that, but the truth is that act is Christianity, is what we're supposed to be doing. And I know that you had to be willing to do it, but you had to have help to do it. Because forgiving someone who wronged you is one thing. And maybe it's the extreme nature of this that makes it possible for you. Forgiving someone who stabbed your son. Yeah.
That's the crazy thing, because I know, because I'm with you. There's some stuff. I still have stuff probably in me that I resent, that I have not forgiven, with way less
smaller
things.
Stuff. Yeah.
So much smaller things.
Yeah.
And that one is just like, whoa, man, because I really am. I pray for that guy. I pray for him, and I really, really do mean it. It's not eating me up, not even one bit. And I think when you just, it just comes from just seeking that his word, where he says what he says to you and what he promises you. And it just supernaturally just came. It just gave me peace.
That one's too heavy to carry too. Yeah. It's too heavy. You can't carry that one.
And I would say, you have the right, you have to, you're not off course at all. That's why I said before, like I really feel for both of you, because they're in a flick of a moment, Clay steps into a situation and makes a choice, whether it was right or wrong. He made a choice. He could have just walk away, or when our boys in their group, they go out and drink a beer or smoke something, man, they don't expect someone to stab them over it. They don't expect somebody to drop something in their beer or in their smoke. That's just, it's not right. They were, so everybody knows that. You don't even have to defend it in this side, because everybody knows that Sage, it's just I'll just flat out say it, that he was, basically murdered, like everybody else, like some of these, it's not normal. It's not right. It's not
Let me ask you this. I've been wanting to ask you this, and this is something I would typically ask you here, but I'm just going to ask because the guy, the dealer that sold the drugs, they had arrested him and were going to charge him with second-degree murder. And then his buddy changed the story, and whatever it happened, it didn't happen. I talked to the cops for a while. I talked to the DA, a great guy, for a little bit. It's been a few years, but I have felt like that's not my hill to die on.
Yeah,
it hasn't been. I'm concerned. I think that dangerous people I want to be safe and have dangerous people off the street, whatever. But it hasn't been my. I have been much more inclined to try to listen to what you're saying and forgive the people around me or whatever, and let the people out there do their job and pray that this guy doesn't hurt somebody else, rather than just beating myself up to go after this person.
That's
what do you feel?
I think you're right. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, there's literally, you don't have to try anymore. Just the Lord, I think our justice system is jacked up, but it's nothing that God didn't know.
Yeah.
It's like, and not only that, you're keeping dangerous people off the street. This guy that did this, he shouldn't have been out there.
Right.
But if he wasn't out there, then it doesn't happen. Maybe not, but he was, and he did. And then whatever. So, the last person, could be beating himself up about, why didn't we go fight and try to get that guy off? He just didn't. And it doesn't, it's not your battle. He knows. That's what I always we got to make sure that we remember, that God is not up there wringing his hands going, oh my God, I didn't know this guy was going to get off the hook.
Yeah.
Oh, now what? It's all screwed up the whole plan. No.
And I went down that road for a while, and it felt like this is not what the plan I have for you. This is just, it's a part of it. A couple of things I want to ask you about. I can't remember the exact story, but the signs, we still get signs, but man, that first 6 months, man, it was like the veil is thin, and we got, things that people would have said, like, I got a couple pat on the shoulders. Well, whatever makes you feel better. Yeah. And I wanted to punch people in the throat. But I would have been that guy outside of this experience going, well, whatever makes you feel better. But there's a story about the Leonard Skinner song.
Oh, yeah.
With Clay.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly. It's just so.
Yeah, it was really crazy. Clay was at a school in New York on Long Island, and the pastor that he met up there that he was doing Bible studies with just called and decided to bring all the football players he could down for the celebration. And so they came and they stayed at this hotel out there near Franklin. And that morning they all decided to get up before the celebration. They all said, we want to go down to this place, to the Dogwood where it happened. Yeah. And he was like, I don't think that's a good idea. It's going to wreck y'all and blah, blah, blah. And they're, no, we've thought about it and we want to do it. And they were like, okay. So they loaded up at 9 in the morning that Saturday morning, and went down there, and there wasn't much traffic, nobody around. And they were just kind of going out. But there was a bouncer out in there that happened to be there the week before and was like, yeah, I'll tell you about what happened. And this is how I was here, and this is where that blah, blah. And that was going to be pretty much it. And then they were like, thank you. And they started gathering together, and Pastor Todd said, man, guys, let's pray over this area. Let's circle up and pray right now. And they were like, okay. And so they made this big circle, and Pastor Todd had his eyes closed and he's praying, and he kind of heard some kind of little commotion, but then he looked in, and right in the middle of the circle, there's this old homeless guy with a guitar, and there's a hole in it. He had taken a guitar. Clay learned how to play guitar and some stuff, and he'd beat it up, but he had it in his dorm room. And this is like backstory, but his roommate, they turned into best friends. This guy, Jake Boff, who spoke at it, he said, yeah, Clay just drive me crazy all the time, things I didn't know, He said he would stand on his bed and just play Freebird all the time. And he'd get on there and I was like, shut up, because Jake was mostly black and he didn't want to hear that stuff and he didn't care about country music and he'd get up there and sing Freebird. And I was like, and so first of all, now backtrack one day before, I had no idea about that. I didn't even know Clay liked Freebird. That the lady Pam from the memorial place,
Pam Stevens,
you guys,
she's
Pam,
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So she called the day before and said, this video is awesome. Everything's great, but we need one more song because it's going to go long and it just doesn't cover it. I don't want to replay a song. And I was like, and I had made an executive decision without Susan around. I was like, and we called him Bird all the time. Clay Bird, and we called him Birdie.
Kenneth called him Bird.
Yeah. So I don't know why. It's not me. I'm not a fan of this song. I like Skinner, and all right, but I'm a fan of Southern rock and all that stuff. Yeah. Clay was a big classic rock, all that stuff. So I didn't know that about Free, had zero idea. And I said, Freebird. And she was like, really? And I go, yeah, Freebird. Okay. And then I told Susan when we got there and it started during the.
So you didn't even know he was playing Freebird for his roommate when you told her to play it?
I had no idea.
So you just randomly said Freebird?
That he would sing the song. I didn't know he knew the words. I didn't know he knew I knew he liked classic rock. That's all I knew. But, so then, but this is a whole week after the whole weekend, that weekend of the celebration and all that. I'm reading a story that Pastor Todd, he sends me a story and he goes, hey, will you read this story and see if you like it? Someone asked me to send in this magazine and it's just about my faith and things. And I wanted to say the impact Clay had on my life. And I'm reading it and I go back to this story and it says, so we went down there and checked out the Dogwood and the kids were circled up praying. And then all of a sudden this homeless guy with a guitar appears in the middle of the circle. And I opened my eyes and I was taken back. I was like, hey, excuse me. He goes, hey man, what are y'all doing here? And then he goes, let me play y'all a song. And he, I don't know what song he played, but I can't remember what he played first, but he played a song. He just broke out in a song. And then he was done and they go, okay, someone threw some money at him. And I don't even know if he took it or nothing. He goes, let me play you another. And they said, no, man, don't worry about it. He goes, no, man. He said, me and Trigger know everything. Clay's best friend in the world was his dog, Trigger, who lives with us still. And that's who he left behind. And he goes, me and Trigger know everything. And Boff goes, Trigger? And he goes, who's that? And he goes, my guitar. It's Trigger. And he goes, I got one for you. And he started playing Freebird. And they were just like, and Jake was like, oh my God, what in the world is going on here? And this is all, I'm just reading this. I didn't know this story. And then he said, then he got done playing and we just kind of got back together and there were some people weeping and Boff was telling the story like, that was Clay's best friend. That's his dog's name. And then they were like, what? And then they looked up and they looked behind and then the guy was gone. He was just nowhere to be found. They couldn't find him anywhere. And then they were just blown away. And then fast forward to later on that day, we were driving to church and we get there and they're showing the video and Susan goes, where'd this song come from? Flurry Free. I go, I just told him to play it. Free Bird. It makes sense. She's like, okay, whatever. But then later on, after reading that story and all that, it just.
And you didn't even know that.
I had no idea. Had no idea about any of that stuff. So that's just, that was That was just not a coincidental thing.
I have more than one signs piece, but that one just is like
unbelievable.
I mean, the trigger as the guitar, that's the part that I couldn't remember. I mean, that's just, you know.
He went through high school and college with this weird ministry he started called 137. And I knew about this, and he'd always say 137. They had a handshake with all his certain buddies, and I didn't know what it meant. And I never knew that his siblings knew, but they didn't share it with me. And it was something, I thought it was some Trump wannabe gang thing or whatever. And they'd always do it. And it was 1-3. So they always put it on their eye black, and he had it tattooed on him. He had it everywhere. It was always this. And he had a lot of things on his computer for the ministry, shirts made up on it, that were left behind. There's how he wanted to do it. And it wasn't until then that I found out what it meant. And so 137 means one God, 3 Godhead, 7 is finished, the final number. That's what it was meant. So he always said everything they talked about was 137. Do it for 137. Do it for God. Play for him. And and the crazy also the other thing, after, like a day after the thing, somebody that knew about that sent us the video of the service and said, OMG, look at the time of this service, the entire service from front to the start to the end.
137
was 1 hour and 37 minutes. I mean, we see that everywhere all the time. But I mean, it's just that whole weekend was just like, what? It was crazy.
Sage had a thing where he would just always go, "It's 9/11." It just, I don't even know why he did it, but he always, 9/11, it's 9/11. He just showed you his phone when it was 9/11. He just always pointed out. I've had more, like, there's a crossroads thing coming, and I had to make a decision. I'm like, I need to call this person. It's the right thing to do. And I picked up the phone. It's 9/11. We'll be watching a football game, and the clock will stop on 9/11, or a football game we're watching, which is a very odd score, will be 9 to 11, and it'll be but it all the time. I'm hiking the other day, and I just left my earbuds in the car, so I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to do this walk with Sage. Like, I literally, I'm going to just do this walk with Sage. And I'm walking through, and there's a post. There's like mile markers on this thing, 9/11 on the thing. And I've done that hike 50 times and never noticed it. But today I said, I'm going to walk with Sage today. I'm leaving the earbuds in the car. No music, no talking, no podcast. And I walk it, and I see that that's one of the many things. But the numbers game, I mean,
it's crazy.
What is it? I think, was it Winston Churchill or somebody said you can live life as though nothing's a miracle or as though everything's a miracle. Yeah. And I'm pretty into the everything's a miracle now.
So do I. I do. I believe
it's all, I think we're going to be flabbergasted with how much sense everything makes.
Oh yeah. How much, and you talk about the impact and the ripple effect with your son's life, and between what that, as far as God's concerned, granted, he is concerned. He's worried. He doesn't like to see us sad and all that. So granted that, but it's not that it doesn't care enough, but it's really, really insignificant in the grand scheme. It's not a big deal, but for us, he knows that we know that it is a big deal. And so he cares, but
he trusts us enough to give it to us anyway. Yeah. And that is, there's a guy, one of our guys in the dad's group that lost his son. He always said, we're in a place because God trusted us enough to give us this. That's true. You and I are not here talking about this outside of the worst thing ever, but somebody out there who might need to hear this, whatever it is, the one human being is going to be there. Like, we can do with this what we will. I mean, my instinct would be to climb into a bottle of Crown Royal and you would never see me again. Yeah. And so, I wouldn't just ruin my own life, though. I'd ruin everybody else's. I would just, I'm a bad alcoholic, which is why I haven't had a drink in 17 years. But it's amazing to me. It's never crossed my mind since It's just not even an option. No, I will never. Yeah. And that is my go-to. What would you do if this happened? I even had an agreement with God. I've told this before. you take one of my kids, I'm drinking again. Like all bets are off. Like that's the deal breaker. You can't do that. And the truth is, I don't want to drink.
Yeah.
It hasn't.
He took it from me, and at the time I was drinking. Before I was just drinking beer a little bit, still a little bit before then. So you would think, well, that's a good enough reason to go really start. They go, why not? Yeah. But I haven't had one since. He just took it out of my life.
Oh, really?
I don't even
You didn't even have a problem. Yeah.
I didn't have a problem. I mean, it was in my family, and I liked beer every now and then. It was a fun thing, especially on the beach or whatever. But he's just, all that stuff is like, I just trust him, and I just, denying the flesh when I can, and you practice at it and you just go, yeah, I'm getting through that. I didn't need that. And he's proving over and over, you don't need that. He is sufficient. And I'm just finding out that how really, truly sufficient he is in all things. And I just don't need, I'm finding he's just flipped the whole thing upside down, turned everything where it's like, dang, man, I know it's hard I really starting to begin to really enjoy life and understand what it's really about. It's always about that one more. It's always about, what are we going to do with this? In the suffering part, I mean, we could think about that and ask why all the time, but my thing or the question is, why not? Why not you? Why not? Should it be somewhere else? No, I would say that, man, he, not like he didn't know, but he entrusted the right people when he gave you this, because you guys have been amazing in your walk, and the people you reach, I starting to think about it, because I was always wondering, I know, gosh, why did you give me like that song? But it was a success. And why that song? It's a dumb song, and I'm sorry that I wrote it, and it doesn't bring any honor to the king or do anything. And I'd wonder about that, and I'm like, yeah, okay, but he doesn't care. It's all right. You could write the song. But now I look back and go, man, I get it. I totally get it. Like he could take
it's a platform for the good
It's a
stuff.
platform, like, how do you get where you could reach people, because, now I'm going to use that. I'm going to make people know your name, even if it's a stupid song, but they're going to,
that song's the jackass.
And then when I change you and your heart and everything in you, and I'm not saying I'm by anything perfect but I just know that all my hope is in a different place, and it's not wasted in the just chasing the things of this world anymore.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And I want you to know you're a super huge inspiration to me, but not just me, a lot of people, but that ripple effect of somebody's helping you, give you strength, you're helping give me strength. And then we put it out there, and people are much more healthy because somebody's talking about this. I want to ask about your other kids. How are your other kids?
Yeah, they're doing great. Yeah, they're all doing great for the most part. They've had the same kind of transformation. CJ is a little bit more, he stays a little bit more removed from the family, so he hasn't been able to just get saturated deeply in the truth that we've been, that you immediately, immediately afterwards, it becomes like, there was a 2-month span there of just every single day getting together with the ones you love and the truth and the people that could just encourage and show you the truth. And he didn't get that initial thing. So he's all, he probably thinks he has more questions, but he's on his own timeline, but he's doing great. He's getting along. And Tucker is, I would say Tucker has just been, for me, it's been a gigantic rock for me, because his whole life has turned over so much, and he's grown so much in what matters. It's changed his song. It's changed just the character he's becoming and the life. Because I remember even I used to tell Tuck when he got his deal, he was 19 and he was trying to make a record and all this stuff. And I was like, man, you're not going to tell me anything. What are you going to tell me? You're not going to sing a song that I'm going to go, yeah, that's,
Although you did write a #1 with your son.
Yeah.
And then he was the artist on, which is pretty great.
I hate that song.
Oh, no,
that's what he says.
It's great.
I like.
Rock on. Tucker Beathard. By the way, your kids, first of all, great kids. But an NFL quarterback, a rock star. I hear Charlie's an amazing gospel singer.
Yeah.
I don't know where I heard that.
Praise and worship stuff, and she's doing great. She's in the middle of a record negotiating all that with Toby's company.
Oh, wow.
Goatee.
Awesome.
Yeah. But she's I don't know. She's just doing it. If something comes along, she's doing, she's just kind of blind with it.
Yeah, it's all of them. And I'll say this about your boys watching the older ones play football and then seeing firsthand. Sage was like in 10th grade when Clay was his senior playing. So we were there, and they're warriors. All of them. That's you used that word earlier, and that's exactly what I thought about all of them. And that's just an impressive attribute to have, regardless of. Obviously there's talent involved in things God gave you, but the warrior thing sometimes I think we get to decide. Do I want to do this way? Or do I want to, I want to step out of bounds?
Yeah, exactly.
and they don't step out of bounds. Your guys. I don't know your girls.
Well, I'm grateful. Like you guys, like you and Brett, you guys are, they're competitive and they love each other and they're going to try to outdo each other. But they're all together. They just grew up that way. Everything when they're kids, I finished my milk before you did.
Of course.
And it's
compete over literally things that are almost not capable of competing over. We would compete over who had more noodles in their soup.
They still do. CJ's 28 and he picks on Tatum. She's 12. He's like, oh man, yeah, you didn't even da. I can't, Huh? How many kids? 5.
5.
Yeah. So,
it's amazing that competition grinds them to good art. Just
it's good. It helps make them. It gives them a chance out there.
Brett and I are in our 50s, and we'll still be on a plane and do "I got you last." We'll touch each other, got you last. We're in our 50s. It's literally the most childish thing.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
All right, so I ask everyone a question if doing this, and I think the first half of this answer for you is obvious, but the second half will be, but what's the worst thing that ever happened to you, and what's the best thing that came out of that?
Well, yeah, it's obvious to not get to truly say goodbye to your son, your kid, your child, to someone to lose a son to for this time and for them to, especially to go before us as dads, I think we'd try to avoid that at all costs. I'd rather take it, but then that would be selfish, But all these revelations are the best things, We immediately started going, oh, I wish it was me. What, so he could be here hurting? Because I don't want to feel this pain. That's the bottom line. I don't want to miss him. But I realized that, God gave me him so that I could get through this. God gave me himself, his son Jesus, so I could be saved and get through this and believe him. And I just started, I think it was that I just turned, the best thing that ever happened because of this, and I don't see it in other ways, is just that the turning to him instead of anything else. Mm-hmm. And to a deeper relationship. You think you're walking with him. I thought I knew him, but I didn't. I didn't know him like I know him now, and how much he really is on our side, and how much it's not about this time on earth. It's like, I even heard this morning. We are here to be about his business. That's it. And how much I might not have been about his business all the time. I was worrying and meddling and all these other things and trying to make it for the kids, wanting them to make it, wanting them to be happy, when I realized that, there's joy and peace in all things. And I truly found that. And in the worst possible thing that could happen to, if you'd have told me that I could find joy and peace in that, in
suffering.
I'd say, and I never really got it, and they talk
Joy
about
and
Paul
suffering.
and Paul and the thorn in his side. I was like, we'd always guess, what is that? I wonder what it is. Did he really have a thorn? I get it, man. It was just like people, what I got, this was the hardest thing, is that you get a lot of people texting like after the trials going, well, now you could turn the page. You're like, no.
I hate when people say that stuff.
I'm glad you got through that. Now you could, and I'm like, man, I'll never not miss my son. I'll never not wish I could be with him and hold him and all that stuff. And that is my thorn. And but that keeps me going to God, so these things, these sufferings, and that's what I realize now, that I realize that if we don't comfortable, he's not interested in us being comfortable. He wants us to understand who we are in him. And that's the only way we can get through this world.
Getting comfortable being uncomfortable is definitely one of the gifts that I have. I'm just more okay with being uncomfortable. Yeah. Yes is much closer to my lips than no, which would have been the opposite for you. Will you? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Check it out.
Yeah.
I went and spoke to 1,500 funeral directors for Pam Stevens at her thing. That is not what I would have thought was a nice Wednesday morning thing. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing people. Brett and I played one song. We played If You're Reading This for them. And I spoke to these. It's just not something that I would have done before. But it's just everything opens up. It's just the surrender that you kind of have to have. And I like this conversation. And if you heard this, so these guys are celebrating. It doesn't mean we don't have rough days. I know you have hard days. I don't even have to ask about them.
Right.
But the encouragement and the other times, man, just as I'm grateful to have you as a friend, but I'm even more grateful to have you as a mentor or someone to be able to watch, because it is, when I went to Clay's funeral, I sat in the balcony and with a couple friends, and when Susan talked, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I really thought she was so great. I thought, well, she's fine because the talk was so great.
Yeah.
And now I realize this isn't ever over.
Yeah.
We are never, there's the thorn. There's the thorn. There's an empty spot. My heart was broken forever.
Yeah.
But what do we do with that broken heart? That's what we get to do.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of, there's spiritual things, but they have practical results. And the practical results of the spiritual things are that we get to help other people along the way suffering from this. And
don't you feel like I think you said it just a few minutes ago, that don't you feel like opportunities that you never would have had before? These are like this, but they happen all the time. You go speaking to 1,500, doing these things like these. Well, you want me to come talk? I saw you say something, or you said, this is the songwriter, I met you or whatever. And I'm like, wow. Like you said, we won't even know.
You don't even know
the things that.
It's probably good because we'd get ego about it if we knew, right? We don't need to know.
Yeah.
But we have been, it's funny, Brett and I have been approached about doing podcasts since I didn't even know what a podcast was. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And if I did a podcast, it would be, well, let's have your famous friends on and make the podcast that makes you look cool.
Talk about old drunk
Definitely
stories.
Not. How funny we were. We're sober now, but let's talk about how fun this, but this definitely wouldn't have been my, this is what you're going to do. You're going to talk about grief with your friends. What? And that is the difference. I don't really care.
Yeah.
And the truth is, caring what people think about you probably makes them think less of you. Like I wouldn't care so much what people thought about me if I realized how little they did.
Yeah.
That's right. Nobody cares about you. People care about themselves. Our circles are really small, and getting rid of that worry about having to appear the right way for the right person, whatever. It's one of those gifts, man. That is a gift. And I honestly, Casey, this is not no BS. I feel like you've always had a better serving of that than most people in our business. Well, you just quietly went in and just kicked butt at your job, and you have you got a great family, and your wife is amazing, your kids are amazing, and you just did your job, and you were a positive Christian guy before this thing ever happened. And then when this happens, that's when you're supposed to implode, right? And that's why it's so good to be headed down the right path when this does happen, because you accelerated down the path you were already on. If I had been drinking when this happened, there'd be 2 graves. I'd already be dead. There's no doubt. But
yeah.
God knows what he's doing, right? He got me I was on the path, headed the right way. And Michelle and I were close when this happened, because this either splits your marriage up or makes it closer. But we were close because we had to deal with some difficulties together as a family, and we were strong. And this has made us even stronger versus tear us apart. So there's always hope. But man, just pointing ourselves in the right direction and going there. I don't think like your Copenhagen and beer and my filthy mouth, from my mother's perspective, I'm not saying that that's God's best all the time, but I do know that we're supposed to meet him and find that direction and head down that road, and he'll meet us exactly where we are. We can't meet him where he is because we don't get there. Right. He meets us where we are.
Right. We can't earn it. You already said that.
Yeah.
But here's one more thing that we didn't bring up, like the chance of you and I meeting out at Huff's that day.
I meant to say that, yeah.
What was that about? I mean, how in the world and why does that happen? I mean,
okay, so
I knew
what was it
later
about
on
that?
Afterwards that you were just riding, but I mean, it was, I don't know, a week or 2 after the celebration. I don't know.
Well, we were riding motorcycles, so it had to be a couple months. This is probably April.
But
March.
It was getting
warm. It's probably cool out.
Closer to when Sage went to heaven.
Closer to when Sage went to heaven.
I mean, very close.
So Clay died on December 21st. I hadn't seen you. I was at the funeral, but I didn't even stay after the funeral. There's like a million people there.
Yeah, but what was the day?
So it was, I thought it was a few months, probably right between there.
I mean, what was the day of Sage?
Sage's was May the 18th of the next year.
So it was right around then.
So it was right around then. Yeah, it was like April. It's probably April.
I think it was, I remember talking to Kenneth and going, "What, I just saw him 2 weeks ago." Or
maybe it was maybe it was.
It was within.
Maybe it was May because I
mean, it was within. I think within weeks.
Yeah.
Either from 1 to 2 weeks, because I hadn't seen you not only that and probably maybe up to a year.
Yeah. A couple of years. I definitely hadn't seen you since Clay passed. And it was funny because I should know you and I both and how much we think of the government. But it was COVID-y as hell, right? Yeah. It was super. And I saw you and I'm like, holy cow. And I was riding to a 12-step meeting with a couple buddies and I saw you and I'm like, and I started a fist bump you. I'm like, no way, man. And we just came and gave a big hug when nobody was hugging, you know what I mean? It was, and for some reason, even that day, I was like, man, that was, I thought it was on your behalf that we had, like, that was just, I go, there's a reason we ran into each other. I thought
for a second there, you'd think maybe it was because you brought up, you're like, you told me you were sorry. And I was like, yeah, I know, this, you're going, well, you told me about Sage and where he was. And you're saying, but I've let it go. You were talking about letting it go. And I can't worry about it anymore. And you were going in depth about where he was. And you go, and he's starting to, I think you were telling me he was starting to come around. And when I started giving up trying to worry about it and control, then he started, and it sounded at that point like it did. Well, it doesn't matter where he was in the time.
He was too. He was sober for the better part of a year before that. And so when it had to be weeks before, because I remember telling you, man, I haven't, it's COVID. I hadn't say we offered for him to come stay here during COVID and he didn't. And I mean, if you go down those rabbit holes, I wish he had him. But when I saw you that day, I was kind of like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to. And by the way, us letting it go when he was here helped us let it go when he's gone. Because letting go of the control, we can't control a man. I can barely control myself. We definitely can't hand sobriety or I mean, we can't follow our kids around and make sure they're wearing their seatbelt, or I don't even wear a seatbelt. So I'm bad. But that chance running into each other at Huff's was so spiritual for me. And I thought it was just like, you're that inspiration, man. That's how you do something when you have a tragedy. You and Susan both were. It was amazing. And the truth is, that was for me.
Yeah,
that was for me.
And what was going to happen with Sage. We were going to need each other.
Yeah,
like you are going to need each other. Get reacquainted. And make sure you say hey and whatever. Yeah. But
I didn't know what that was for, but it was for something, and it turned out it was.
I mean, that's how close we are to something like that, because you never know. I mean, like here you are going, man, I'm sorry, and I know you were battling, going through your same thing, but at the same time, you're like, you got to be thinking, I'm just glad that, we still have ours, and he's coming around, and who would have known? I mean, but God did, He did. Just for us to meet out at Huff's was crazy. I mean, that's right by my house, but I had for him to be out there, and I'm
never there, and I hadn't seen you in at least a year.
I know.
Maybe 2 years, and it was there's so many little things that work.
A lot of these things are just refreshing, and they just they encourage me and inspire me more.
Yeah,
to go keep on. Yeah,
yeah,
and
people
keep doing it.
People are a gift to us, to each other. We're supposed to be, and you're on the top of the list. It's quiet. We don't see each other that much, but I think too, when right after Sage died, you and Susan came and we went to breakfast. We needed to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, man, they've been through all this, right? It's all of 5 months. They're healed by now. And I remember not that long ago, I just texted you and I said, I want you to know that now I realize that the 5 months since you lost your kid was nothing. Like it was still a raw wound.
We're all pros. And we got
I was thinking, well, they're fine, right? They've been through 5 months of this, not realizing that you just ripped a scab off that had just barely scabbed over at the time. So I'm grateful for that, but I understand now. I mean, this isn't a move on thing. It's a move forward thing.
Yeah.
And there's no move on.
That's great.
And I'll never, John Huey, who I think is a booking agent in town, and he lost his son as well. But he had a pastor friend that's wife was with, and I will call her Betty because I don't remember her name, but she was with some friends, and they were together on the day of his passing, transition day, her son. And one of her friends said, "Well, it's been a year now. Do we get the old Betty back?" And it's like, no, you don't. You don't ever get the old Betty back, and you don't ever get the old Brad back, and you don't ever get the old Casey back, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely a brand new perspective, man. It's just as if we're going to avoid going there too,
No, exactly. It makes me so much happier with everything else we're doing.
And the one of the great things I get reminded of, you had talked about, well, no, I don't think he'd come back. If he knew what he knows, and would he come back? And I think when we know what God knows, I think, we're going to be grateful for everything that's happened. But I remember right before, it was November before then, and we were up at his college at a football game, and he was supposed to come home for Thanksgiving. And so we were excited. You're like, well, we'll see you next week for Thanksgiving. He's like, nah, Mom, I'm not coming home. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And she's like, no, Mom, I got a friend up here. His family's good. I don't want you guys, like I said before, I don't want you guys spending that money. It's not worth it. I'm going to stand up here. I like my friends. I'm going to stay here. I'm like, dang, but we want you to come home. Yeah. But he was like, no, I'm good. And so that just gives you a
little preview.
It was like, no, I'm good. Like, dang. And so, gosh, and why don't we feel this way? Like CJ left the other day to go back to camp. He's out of our sight.
Is he playing for the Jaguars?
Yeah. So he's out of our sight and he's gone, but why am I not in mourning? It's the same thing. He's just over there.
And we're going to see CJ again, but we're going to see Clay again too.
He's just over there, and so until I see him again, it's that damn FaceTime. If we didn't have damn FaceTime,
exactly.
then we never got used to it.
Yeah, if we never got used to it, it'd be like people used to go off to war for years and we didn't see them. And I mean, you helped me a lot with that perspective. You did it early. I'm grateful. Love to your whole family. Love you, man. Yeah. Thank you for doing this, Casey.
Love you guys more.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Dude, appreciate you, man.
You know what? Hey, you want to talk about 137, correct?
Yes.
I looked down. When you mentioned 130, I'm not kidding. I got chills saying this. I looked down on the audio thing. I was like, because I knew we were about an hour and a half. I was like, well, this is like 45 minutes ago when we were talking about 137.
Yeah.
And I thought, I know we did an hour and a half. There's no way that's going to say 137. I was like, 137.
Oh, man, when you looked at it. Oh, my God. Can't make that.
What was it? Time on an hour and 37 in?
Yeah, it was an hour and 37 in. Yeah.
When you looked at it.
When I looked at it, because y'all were talking about it. I was like,
you can't make that up.
You're talking about it. I was just like, I know y'all been talking about it for an hour. I know y'all been talking about an hour and a half. There's no way this is 137 right now. I looked at it and I was like, what?
Oh, God, that is crazy.
That doesn't surprise me at all.